Welcome back to another Refuge recap. We're just coming off of Thanksgiving, and I don't know about you, but I know what I still have on my mind.
Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, pork, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rat.
In all seriousness though, today I'm going to be continuing our attitude adjustment series that Pastor Zeth started last week. I'm actually going to kick off this message with our passage, and today we're just going to be focusing on two verses from the 23rd Psalm. So verses 5 and 6 say, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Now, as I'm sure most of you know, the book of Psalms is actually a book of songs, many of which, including this one, were written by King David. However, Psalms isn't like the typical Spotify playlist. All of the Psalms have the purpose of offering praise to God. We see that this is true even though the majority of the Psalms recorded in the Bible are laments. So what is a lament? Google defines a lament as a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. Even in the midst of some crazy struggles and heartache, we see that the authors of the Psalms are still praising God. Many times, they're offering praise despite their circumstances and not because of them. They're not praising because everything is perfect and going super well. They're praising God because He has given them what we would consider small blessings every day. So what's the point? Why am I making such a big deal about this? Well, it really ties into what Pastor Zeth was talking about last week. We should be looking to David and the other psalmists as an example in this situation. They find gratitude in the blessings that have been laid out before them rather than constantly searching for something else. We can even see that in this passage. So David starts off by saying that God has prepared a table in the presence of my enemies. So even though David was surrounded by enemies on all sides, they were coming to kill him and take his kingdom and take everything that belonged to him, he's still noting that he has received an abundant blessing from God. Not only an abundant blessing though, a blessing that is overflowing. It's not just sufficient, but it's more than he could ever hope for. So what is this overflowing blessing that God offered to both David then and to us now? Well, this short passage gives us two things that God gives us in an overflowing abundance. First thing is goodness. We can be thankful every day just in knowing that God is good all of the time. Sometimes it can be hard for us to understand God's goodness. When we go through difficult times, it's all too easy to start questioning. However, if we lean into the fact that we know God is always good, it can provide an amount of comfort to us during those times. Despite our circumstances, God is always good and is always offering us overflowing amounts of that goodness. And the second thing is love. God is constantly pouring out His love for us, and we see that in the biggest way possible in the sacrifice of Jesus. So we know that Jesus came to earth, He lived a life as a man. At the end of that life, He endured torture, and He went through the most painful death imaginable at the time. And He did all of that simply because of God's infinite love for us, and so that we may dwell with Him. And I say all of this, and I include this in our Attitude Adjustment series, to show that God is constantly pouring out reasons for us to be grateful. And David does a great job of summing that up in this passage. So whether you're watching this at the time that it comes out, and we're still kind of riding that wave of Thanksgiving thankfulness, or you're watching it sometimes later, I hope that you can be encouraged in the knowledge that God is giving you an abundantly overflowing number of reasons to be thankful. We hope to catch you back here next week for another Refuge recap. Have a great week.